Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the King's Court. We're going to be breaking down everything that's happening here in ShoutCraft Kings, and of course looking forward to ShoutCraft Kings October, broadcasting live on twitch.tv/TotalBiscuit on October the 15th, beginning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Coming up in the show, we're going to be interviewing our current King Mana and his concerns about his rematch with Nurchio. Talking to ex-Axiom coach and current ShoutCraft Kings Korean caster Crank as regards to the Korean response to the Kesper Cup and ShoutCraft Kings Korean player performance. And we're going to be rounding up all of the tournaments that our players have been involved in and announcing some new debuts in the ShoutCraft Kings roster. All that coming up here on the King's Court. MVP's Ryung has yet to make an impact on ShoutCraft Kings, debuting in August to lose in a competitive match with Innovation, and again in September against a seemingly unstoppable-looking Nurchio. Despite this, however, he will be making another appearance in ShoutCraft Kings October due to qualification via the Oli Mo League monthly finals. Ryung was able to put on a very impressive performance during the show with an absolute destructive run against three top Terrans, Alive, Gumiho, and the GSL champion Byun, who he handily defeated 3-1 in the finals. Ryung appears to be having a very strong October with a string of victories in Lifang Cup number 156, as well as another massive tear in the Oli Mo League Weekly, losing only to Byun 2-3 in the finals after defeating Linok and Stats. Ryung appears to be in excellent form going into ShoutCraft Kings October and has a good shot at making a fairly deep run, having defeated, within the last few weeks, fairly large portions of the ShoutCraft Kings roster. As always, ShoutCraft Kings will feature familiar faces as well as debuts, and for the first time ever, we are happy to invite a player from KT Rolster, the one and only Stats, who had a very impressive run in the recent Kesper Cup, finishing top of his group against Trap, Solar, and Marine Lord, defeating Maru in a very competitive best-of-5 before falling to the eventual champion Neeb. Stats has had an absolutely excellent year, finishing second place in the Star League Season 1 finals, as well as, of course, winning the WCS Korea Season 1 Cross Finals. Stats' performance in 2016 is perhaps epitomized by his presence in Pro League, with a 27-9 record alongside an all-kill in the Round 2 playoffs against SK Telecom T1. Stats' 2016 form makes him a favorite going into ShoutCraft October. SKT1 continues to flex its muscles in the ShoutCraft Kings tournament, and this time around they will be sending, for the first time ever, SKT1 Sue. Looking to try and recapture his 2015 glory, where he won the Kesper Cup Season 2, as well as placed second in IEM Gamescom, Sue is still, of course, a force to be reckoned with. It's also worth noting that his Kesper Cup Championship is now, of course, in the hands of Neeb, a regular in the tournament, and it's very possible that they may cross paths in ShoutCraft Kings October. Champion versus champion, a possible matchup coming up in the tournament on October 15th. ShoutCraft Kings September edition was a story of streaks, 3 in fact, Byun, Nurchio, and perhaps the most surprising, Mana, taking home all the prize money in September's event. We'd like to keep track of exactly what's been going on with our Kings over the last month or so, and Mana, once again, has been butting heads with rival Nurchio in the WESG qualifiers for Europe and the CIS. He unfortunately was defeated 3-0 in the playoffs, an event which Nurchio went on to win 4-1 against fellow Polishman Alazer. While Mana's form looked very strong in ShoutCraft Kings September, with solid wins against Nurchio, Alazer, Uthermal, and Showtime, widely considered to be a selection of the best foreign players in StarCraft 2, his recent online results have not lived up to expectations. Defeat in the base trade shotgun tournament, as well as Shangangling 4, and the Gauntlet 2016, are recent defeats that our current King Mana will have to overcome going into the tournament in October. Nurchio, on the other hand, has been performing incredibly well, as we saw most recently in the Kesper Cup. An excellent performance, which did not, unfortunately, result in his qualification to the round of 8. However, his matches were very competitive and solidified Nurchio as one of the top foreign players in the world. He had a rematch against Maru, whose first ever match, of course, happening in ShoutCraft Kings September. Maru was able to narrowly defeat him 2-1, and Nurchio was also able to defeat Classic in the group stage before falling to Patience 2-0. Since then, the only tournament he has competed in is, of course, the WESG qualifiers for Europe, which he absolutely destroyed, with one exception, a 2-1 loss to Liquid Snoot. Nurcio appears to remain the odds-on favourite going into his rematch with current king Mana. However, in a best-of-one format with King's map choice advantage, anything can happen. Finally, of course, after an 8-win streak in ShoutCraft Kings September, the reigning GSL champion and #1 ranked Ligalac player in the world continues to destroy online cups. Since his defeat in the Casper Cup at the hands of Zest, Bjorn has brutalized every online cup he's entered, including Shangang Ling, Lefang Cup #156, and the Oli Mo League Weekly #73. He did, however, stumble in the finals of Oli Mo League September with a 3-1 loss to Ryung. Bjorn's form remains extremely strong in all matchups, however, perhaps the aura of invincibility is starting to show a few cracks. Joining me now, of course, we have our reigning King of the Hill, as of a fairly surprise victory, I believe, in ShoutCraft Kings September, the one and only Liquid Mana. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me, and thanks for inviting me to the ShoutCraft Kings.
Hey, of course. You are somewhat of a last-minute invite, actually, to the tournament in September.
Yeah, that's true, but I think it doesn't matter if I'm last minute or pre-scheduled, because I always felt the power to beat one of those guys, and it happened to be this month, and quite happy to be the reigning king to show some more games in October.
Now, you mentioned at the time you were actually at a Liquid boot camp during the event. What does a boot camp involve for StarCraft 2?
So we gathered all together, all Liquid guys in Utrecht in Netherlands. We also had Harstem there. So we had basically 2 of each race. There's Snoot, TLO, Harstem, me, Euthermal, and Bunny also came down for a while. And we practiced together in one room for almost 2 weeks. It was, I think, 12 days or so. And I think it's so special because it was actually my first bootcamp ever. Even though I was in Korea in 2012, I was in the foreigner house, but it was my first bootcamp, actual bootcamp feeling. And when you see a lot of people around you practicing all together, and there's so much knowledge to be shared about the games, it's truly a special feeling. And you can tell that even after 12 days of practice, I was feeling much more confident than ever in my game. Solely due to the knowledge that the guys shared with me. And then I can imagine how Koreans are so good at this game because they practice all together as well in Korea.
Yeah, it's a very similar technique that's used in the Casper houses and things like that. To great success, of course, and no doubt contributed to your ability to knock off a very strong contender. I mean, we're talking about the guy who went on an 8-win streak, beat the GSL champion, beat Maru, and of course beat 2 very strong Protoss in the form of Creator and Myung-Sik. Now, neither of those Protoss players seemed like they had any idea what to do against Nurcio's build. He was doing the same build every time, and yet you seemed like you had the answer. What did you do?
I think the most important difference was that when Nurcio played Lurkers, I played Disruptors. That's basically, I think, the best counter to Lurkers. But most importantly, I think in those matches, I know Nurcio much more than these guys do. And simply the knowledge of your opponent in StarCraft 2 is so important, because a lot of the times you can see a foreigner beating a Korean in a best of 1 or a small best of 3. But I think if we would see a longer series like a best of 9 or best of 11, we would clearly see the difference between the skill of the players. So I think the knowledge of your opponent is just much more important than ever.
Now, your rivalry with Nurcio, of course, has been going on for years. You've been vying for the top spot in your native country of Poland for quite some time. Nurcio is probably in his best form ever, showing some great games, of course, in the Casper Cup, and a very, very long streak against some great opponents in ShoutCraft Kings in September. Now, statistically, he has the upper hand in a pretty significant way in the head-to-head matchup with you. Is that the kind of thing that gets into your head going into a game?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's not very easy for me to go up against him. I think our styles clashes very in his favor. He's very unorthodox. He's not a standard player, but he plays each game individually, which is, I think, very, very smart of him. And of course, he's a great player in a great form at the moment, but I am not going to be stopped by him this month.
About to ask how you're going to feel going into your match on Saturday, but obviously confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I'm not confident, then like how am I supposed to win if I'm the guy playing there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. It's good to see that he hasn't managed to get into your head despite the statistics. Now, I'd like to know, how does playing in the King of the Hill format differ from a regular tournament? Do you make any changes to your game plan, or do you treat it the same as you would anything else?
It's absolutely different because you don't know who you are playing next most of the time, or even the second next opponent if you keep on winning. The map pool is also a bit limited. It's also all the time best of one. And you need to change your strategy because, of course, you're planning to win all of the matchups, so the entirety of 20 matches if possible. So you need to have a variety of strategies to go against and making them yourself. So the format is very fun, I think, and for me as a player, I enjoy being the king because you're being called a king if you win, so that's cool.
It's always nice for the ego boost, isn't it? Now, this tournament has given the opportunity for foreign players to play against a wide variety of Korean players that they generally don't play against all that often. Is there anybody in particular that you would be looking forward to playing if they happen to show up in this event? Anyone you've really want to?
I would really like to get a revenge versus Rogue. I played him in I think Ting Invitational or no Ting Open tournament in the grand finals where I got smashed 5-0. But the first game was looking very good for me. I did a lot of bad decisions and a big throw in the games, so I really want to get revenge on Rogue.
Now that is an interesting comment considering the list of players I have here. Ladies and gentlemen, your current King of the Hill as of ShoutCraft September on his 4-win streak, the one and only Liquid Mana. He will be opening the festivities for ShoutCraft in October, and he will be facing off in a rematch against his arch rival from Poland, Nurcio, and we'll see who will be able to retain the crown and who will take on a very strong lineup of Korean pros going into this event. Mana, thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you very much, and see you in October 15th.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Liquid Mana. Now, there's been big news from the Korean scene as of late, and frankly, some shocking developments with the winner of the Kesper Cup, the first ever foreign player to win a major Korean event. And while we have heard an awful lot from foreign fans as to their reactions to this, what we haven't really heard a great deal of is information from both the Korean pro scene as well as the Korean fans. Now, who better to tell us a little bit about that than the ex-coach and, of course, GSTL champion of Axiom, Jaewon Choi, aka Crank. Welcome to the show.
Hello, guys.
Now, you've been keeping track of the reaction to ShoutCraft Kings over the last few months from the Korean fans, and of course you've been casting the event as well, so you've been seeing the feedback directly in the live stream Twitch chat. First, I'd like to know the general thoughts of the Korean viewers as to ShoutCraft Kings and to the format, what they think of it, and what they'd like to see from the event.
They really like to see ShoutCraft Kings because of format. Because the Korean scene used to have a same format ran by Gisado, who is a GSL commentator. So everybody has some nostalgia about it. So they really like to see this format. It seems like winner has some advantage about picking map for next matchup, and server problem, there is always ping problem for each players. So nobody can solve those things, but Korean fan didn't really think it's fair for each players that they have to just deal with the blacks. Besides that, everybody there is no complaint at all. Everybody asks, even they came to my stream, ask when next ShoutCraft King is.
Yeah, it's always going to be a problem with online events that we run into these particular issues, and as you said, there's really no way around it. It's been intriguing to see the foreign versus Korean matchup, and we don't get a lot of opportunity to see that, and I think that regardless of it being sort of a suboptimal situation for these guys in terms of lag, the ability to play online and play online tournaments is kind of part of the pro gamer skill set, and it's something that you have to be able to adapt to if you want to survive. Do you think the Korean fans have very high expectations? Do they get very easily let down, or do they get very critical of Korean pro gamers when they don't perform?
Actually, during ShoutCraft Kings, there was a moment Nurture beat so many Korean players in a row, and like Stepanovich, Beyond. People didn't really get mad about Korean players. Seems like they try to make excuse, like some lag problem, ping problem, and like it's really late time for Korean pro gamers. So we gotta see some offline tournament if they can beat Korean players like ShoutCraft Kings.
They absolutely do, and of course, the big topic of this week in terms of offline tournaments is the Casper Cup, which resulted in a crushing victory for the American Protoss player Neeb, 4-0 in the finals against Trap, 3-1 against Stats, and of course he was able to defeat Pet in a fairly close 3-2 series. Now, the reaction from the Korean fan base to this is something I'm very interested in. This has never happened before, and I'd love to hear exactly what they had to say about that.
Neeb and Nurture and Marinlord compete around 16, and actually people expected a lot more from Nurture than Neeb, because right before Casper Cup in ShoutCraft Kings, Nurture beat 8 players in a row. So people expected Nurture but not Neeb, and they know that Marinlord beat Innovation Parting and another high-level player in Nation Wars. So they really think Nurture and Marinlord already have experience to beat Korean players, but not Neeb during round 16. But after round 16, we saw that Neeb beat Korean players with just macro game, not even any cheese game. And Nurture got knocked out over Maru when he was so super red in, and Marinlord just got beat very easily. So people expected to see Nurture and Marinlord's high level game. So people were kind of shocked and really surprised about how round 16 went.
It's interesting to hear that, because I think going into Casper Cup, the favourite in terms of the foreign scene from the foreign players was probably Neeb. Neeb was riding a hype train. There were certainly some doubts about his ability to perform, but I feel that a lot of people did believe he would be the strongest player. So it's very interesting to see that the Korean fan base, anyway, thought the exact opposite of that. Now, I have to ask, what was the general reaction after Neeb's win from the Korean fan base? Was it a disappointment in their pros? Was it surprise? Was there any comment about Trap losing in a straight best-of-7 series 4-0?
During round 16, even though Neeb won, like people focused on criticizing how Korean players played bad more than how Neeb played well. And like even though there was many people who followed every foreign tournament, so they already know that Neeb was a really good player. Like, even though some people say that they didn't really focus at that point and just criticizing Jest or like Pat or other people who lost against Neeb. After Neeb won against Stats and Trap in semi-final and final with a really high-level macro game, there was nobody who criticized about other thing. They all respect how Neeb played. We couldn't see the name on screen. We couldn't even know who is Korean, who is foreigner. I don't know if you remember all games, but there was like a last game, Neeb was super behind against Trap, and in general, people just drawing army when they think it's really behind. But Neeb didn't play that way at all. Even though he was like 20 unit supply behind or 30 unit supply behind, he was still trying to macro and micro and try to chase Trap's army. And he was the one who felt so pressured by Neeb, and Neeb actually made it. So people were okay, this guy is another level. We have to respect this guy. Even though Korean people get beat by foreigners really badly, this is something happen in Starcraft 2 scene, and we all like it like that.
Well, what we'll hopefully see is a rally in performance going into BlizzCon and, of course, into ShoutCraft Kings October. Now, October has a very strong lineup of Korean Casper pros for the ShoutCraft Kings tournament. Possibly the strongest we've ever had. We have a few new debuts announced on the show earlier, of course, that we are going to be seeing both Stats and Sue coming along to the event. This is their first showing, and actually KT's first showing in the tournament. What do you expect from those players?
I had many chance to talk with Stat. He started playing some Olimon League as well, and he was the one who wanted to play ShoutCraft Kings first in KT. Even though he lost against Nib very badly, and he lost against Ryung twice in a row in Olimon League, he's still very passionate to play so many tournaments. I think he's the one who practiced the most, who's passionate the most in KT. So Stats can win so many games because he's very passionate and confident about ShoutCraft Kings.
So that's been the one to watch from the list going into ShoutCraft Kings October. Crank, thank you very much for your insight to the Korean scene today, and we will be taking another look at the Korean fans' reaction next month on the King's Court to what happened in ShoutCraft Kings October, streaming live on the 15th, starting at 8 AM Eastern Time on twitch.tv/TotalBiscuit.